Welcome to Employment Bite. In this series, our London employment team provide bite-sized overviews of some of the key developments surrounding the employment law landscape in the UK. Whether you're an employer or employee, join us for a discussion navigating the dynamic world of employment law. I'm Anvita Sharma, and I'm joined today by Joe Broadbent. In today's Bite, we're talking about the new right to neonatal care leave for parents of babies born on or after the 6th of April. Qualifying employees will be entitled to a week of neonatal care leave for every week that a baby spends in neonatal care that starts within 28 days of birth. They can take a maximum of 12 weeks leave in total, and all leave has got to be taken within 68 weeks of the child's birth. Joe, that's a high-level overview of the new right. One thing I've been wondering is how much change this means for employers in practice.
On one level, you'd obviously hope not very much. Most employers are already going to want to do what they can to support an employee with a seriously ill baby. And I think for those employers, the new statutory right is going to form a baseline, but isn't necessarily going to make that much difference in practice, particularly in situations where the baby only needs to spend maybe a week or two in care. But I was quite surprised when I looked at the statistics. The most recent statistics I could find showed that about 1 in 7 or 90,000 babies a year need some form of neonatal care. And as you'd expect, where you've got a baby that's born very prematurely, they will typically need to spend longer in neonatal care and have a higher degree of support than babies that are born closer to term. And for the parents of those children, clearly knowing that you're able to focus on your child while they're receiving care is going to be really important. And the government estimates that about 60,000 employees a year are going to benefit from the new right.
And who's going to be eligible for neonatal care leave?
That's going to be a child's parents, and it's got quite a wide definition. So it will obviously include a child's biological parents, as you'd expect. It will cover adoptive parents once a baby has been placed with them, and that will include adopters from overseas and also parents in a fostering to adopt arrangement. On top of that, the mother's partner is going to be eligible where the partner is not the child's father, and also the partner of the adoptive parent.
It's worth reminding viewers that neonatal care leave is a day one right. There's no qualifying period of employment, but employees must satisfy the normal service and earnings thresholds to qualify for statutory pay. That's going to be 26 weeks service in the week before the neonatal care leave starts, and average earnings in the previous 8 weeks of not less than £123 a week, which is the current National Insurance lower earnings limit.
You said in your overview that parents will be entitled to a week's leave for each week that a baby spends in neonatal care. Could you expand a bit on how that's going to work in practice?
The regulations talk about qualifying periods. Now, a qualifying period is each period of 7 days in which the child receives uninterrupted neonatal care. The first period starts the day after the baby is admitted to care and ends 7 days later. And the next qualifying period starts immediately. Employees can't take neonatal care leave until the first qualifying period has ended. That reflects a policy decision that only parents whose babies spend at least a week in neonatal care are entitled to leave. Adoptive parents are only eligible for leave for qualifying periods that fall after a child has been placed with them.
What's going to amount to neonatal care for these purposes?
The regulations include 3 types of neonatal care. The most obvious is care in a hospital, but the baby might also be in neonatal care once it's left hospital if the ongoing care is arranged by the hospital under the care of a consultant and involves regular monitoring and visits from healthcare professionals. So if a baby is being regularly visited at home, that's going to be neonatal care if the other conditions are met. But one-off hospital outpatient appointments won't be. The third type of qualifying neonatal care is palliative or end-of-life care. So Joe, what are the rules around when and how eligible parents can take leave?
That's really going to depend on whether they're taking the leave while the child is receiving neonatal care or in the week immediately following discharge or at a later date. An employee who's taking the leave while the baby's receiving neonatal care or in the following week is taking their leave during the Tier 1 period. And in most cases, that's going to be the child's father or the mother's partner or the adopter's partner, because normally the mother is going to be on maternity leave at that point and the adopter is going to be on adoption leave. Now, as you'd expect, the Tier 1 rules are very flexible. All an employee has got to do is tell their employer that they're going to be taking a week of neonatal care leave before they are due to start work on the day that they want their leave to begin. So, for example, if a baby's admitted to neonatal care on June the 1st, a Sunday, the first qualifying period is going to start on Monday the 2nd of June and will come to an end on Sunday the 8th of June. If the parent wants to take the neonatal care leave immediately, all they have to do is tell their employer that they're doing that before they're due to start work on Monday, the 9th of June. And they would have to provide certain other information as well, not very much, things like when the baby started receiving neonatal care. If the baby were then to remain in neonatal care for a second week, the process would start again. The employee would simply need to tell their employer that they wanted to take a second week of neonatal care leave before they were due to start work on Monday, the 16th of June.
And do they have to take leave as soon as it accrues, as in the example you've just explained?
A parent doesn't necessarily have to take leave consecutively during the Tier 1 period. They can do that, and in many cases, I think that's how parents will choose to use the leave. But they don't have to. They can choose to take periods of leave discontinuously if they want to do so. So, for example, somebody could take a week's leave, they could then go back to work for a week, and then take another week's leave after that. The scheme is really designed to let parents take leave in the way that's best for them while the child is receiving care or immediately following the child's discharge. But the notice requirements are more restrictive if leave is taken outside that Tier 1 period. Although employees and employers, of course, can agree not to apply the statutory rules if they choose to do so.
If an employer wants to stick to the statutory rules, the Tier 2 period runs from the point that a child has been out of neonatal care for a week until 68 weeks after the birth. Most mothers and adopters will take their leave during Tier 2, along with any fathers, partners, secondary adopters who haven't taken all their neonatal care leave during Tier 1. During the Tier 2 period, employees must take any remaining leave consecutively and give more notice. It's 15 days notice of a week's leave and 28 days notice of 2 or more weeks leave. For example, a mother who was on maternity leave when a child was in neonatal care would have to take her neonatal leave as a single block and give her employer the relevant amount of notice, which is 15 or 28 days, depending on how much leave she's taking. The statistics on neonatal care show that around 11% of babies who need care come from a multiple pregnancy. So, Jo, are there going to be any special rules around multiple births?
Yes, there are. In simple terms, parents can accrue leave for each child that's receiving qualifying care, but each child has got to receive care for the relevant period of a week. You can't aggregate days of care across the two children. If the children are receiving care at the same time, you can only accrue 1 week's leave for that. And a parent will only be able to take 12 weeks leave in total, regardless of how long the babies spend in neonatal care. But the rules are undoubtedly helpful if one child needs a longer period of care than the other. Anvita, before we end, could you just talk us through the normal employment protections that might apply during neonatal care leave?
Parents can't be dismissed or subjected to a detriment because they've taken leave. Normally, they will be entitled to return to the same job after neonatal care leave, unless they've had consecutive periods of statutory leave lasting more than 26 weeks in total, such as neonatal care leave after a period of additional maternity leave, for example. In that case, the right is to return to the same job unless that's not reasonably practicable. Parents who take a neonatal care leave also get enhanced redundancy protection. They've got a right to be offered suitable alternative vacancy if they're at a risk of redundancy whilst they're on leave. And so do parents who've returned to work after 6 or more consecutive weeks of neonatal care if they're at risk of redundancy in the 18 months after the child's birth. Now that's the end of today's Bite. We'll be back with another employment law development before long.